All right, ladies and gentlemen, hello. My name is Elijah Satroni. I'm an accredited sports nutritionist, personal trainer, and self-proclaimed comedian. Now, this presentation isn't really designed to tell you that you need to lose weight or that fat loss is the thing for you, but more to give you a better understanding around the role of nutrition when it comes to fat loss, some aspects outside of nutrition that we might want to look at, as well as just run over some nutrition things that you might know or might not know. And so to give you an idea around who I am, so I started my journey in a CrossFit box very similar to this about 10 years ago. And when I first started, I very much wasn't looking to diet. I was more just dealing with some health issues and really wanted to get them out of the way. And so after that started, okay, let's jump into some nutrition, changing what I eat. And I made just about every single mistake you could when it came to nutrition. And so I'm here now in front of you to summarize what has been a decade of formal and anecdotal knowledge so that you can achieve results in a much faster time frame than I did. So to give you a rundown of what we're going to go through today, we're going to talk about why someone might want to lose weight, the role of nutrition within a fat loss diet, some factors outside of nutrition that also affect how successful a diet is. And from there, we'll run over macronutrient intakes, recommendations, and how we can monitor them. So the thing here is that fat loss is a very touchy subject. There's a massive stigma that everyone should be lean and jacked. There's like that one guy at a commercial gym that's like, yeah, I've got to be 12% body fat, bro, like the whole time, right? And it's a complete joke, but people tie their health to a number. All right, whether it be what they weighed when they were in high school, what they weighed when they last played sport, okay? The number they see on the scale, they believe represents how healthy they are. And weight loss itself, or pursuing fat loss, doesn't come without risks. There's a chance that you could have distorted body image or a distorted relationship with food. And these mental challenges can lead to some physical problems such as, relative energy deficiency in sport or RED-S. Okay, you could have low energy availability, which leads to hormonal problems, right? I experienced this anecdotally. Back a few years back, I was like, hey, you know what, let's pursue a diet. And I took myself from 90 kilos down to 76. And I felt terrible, right? I felt weak. I was hungry all the time. I looked like I need a sandwich, and all of that combined sort of manifested into an injury. And from there, I decided enough was enough, and so I started fueling myself and chasing performance. And so that is what the change looks like from when I was 76 to what I was a couple of weeks back, right? And so with that said, hey guys, how are we?
I am Wayne. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Wayne. Elijah.
And that's Noah.
Nice to meet you, Noah. Hello, hello.
Sorry.
You're all good. You're all good. Take a seat. Take a seat.
Sorry.
You're all right. It's all good. All right. Let's go from the top for a quick bit. Nah, you're all good, guys. So, to do a recap, my name's Elijah Satroni. I'm an accredited sports nutritionist, personal trainer, self-proclaimed comedian, as they say. But for the most part, I just want to run you through today why someone might want to lose weight and the role of nutrition when it comes to fat loss. And so, to give you an idea of what this presentation is going to go over, I want to talk about why someone might want to lose weight, the role of nutrition when it comes to fat loss, some other factors outside of nutrition that also matter, and last but not least, we'll go over macronutrient intakes and how we can monitor them. So with all that said, fat loss is a super touchy subject. There's a massive stigma right now, like I'm sure everyone has social media, where you've got to be lean, jacked. There's that one guy at a commercial gym that's like, yeah, bro, I've got to be 12% body fat the whole year round sort of thing, all right? And people do tie how much they weigh to how healthy they are, whether it be the last time they were in a gym or the last time they were in high school, okay? The number they see on the scale, they very much believe is, a proxy of how healthy they are. And weight loss itself doesn't come without risks. Like there's a chance that your body image could be distorted, you could develop a very poor relationship with food, and these sort of mental challenges can lead to issues with our physical selves. So you could have some hormonal issues, you could feel weak, low energy. All these things come with pursuing fat loss and going too far. I've been there personally. I decided a few years back, hey, you know what? Let's really chase fat. Let's see how low I can get this scale. And so I got myself from 90 kilos down to 76 in about 11 weeks. Wouldn't recommend it. I felt terrible. I look like I need to have a sandwich, all right? And what that led to for myself is I ended up having a couple of injuries that took me out of the gym. And so from there, I decided, you know what, sick of chasing the scale, I'm going to start hunting performance. And so I look like I've had the sandwich, but I definitely feel like I've got some energy too. And so with all that said, after just bagging fat loss for this past couple of minutes, why would someone want to lose weight in the first place? Well, they might have an aesthetic goal. They might want to look a little bit better. They could also have some health issues where losing a bit of weight, probably might do them some good, all right? They might also have some mobility or performance goals. So I've got a client right now, their only goal is to get from the ground to the floor without needing a chair or a pole or something to get them up, okay? And so that would be an example there. Or maybe they got medical recommendation from a doctor or a specialist to lose a few kilos just for the sake of their health. And to very much put a caveat there, this Prezzo was not medical recommendation at all, right? But we can't also neglect the benefits that come with some fat loss, okay? Improvements to your cardiovascular health, as well as health markers like our blood sugar, plus a reduction to, risks of disease and inflammation within the body. And so the biggest thing I believe we have to take into consideration when it comes to fat loss is context, okay? Is it necessary? Is it the right thing for you right now? And why do you want to lose weight in the first place? Okay, it's sort of like a little checklist that we should tick off before we just start to go, hey, you know what? I'm going to lose some fat here. So with all of that said, where does nutrition come into this? Well, nutrition is one component of energy balance, and it's fairly well common knowledge now, thanks to social media, that by eating less than our total daily energy intake, or what we burn, okay, there's a good chance we're going to lose some fat through a calorie deficit. And so we can actually do this in a couple of ways. We could fast, so maybe you skip breakfast, or you skip lunch, or you follow some other sort of weird fasting protocol. 16-8's like everyone's favorite. It's like, they eat from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. or from midday to 8 p.m., whatever it is. But that's one example of us fasting, where we just reduce the amount of time we allow ourselves to eat food. My favorite way to do it though is just simple food swaps. So I might take what I normally have as rice, I'll just have veggies instead, or instead of chicken thigh, I'll do chicken breast. Instead of having a full sugar Coke, I'll just go for a Coke Zero. And so while the food on my plate looks like the same amount, the total amount of calories in that meal can be very, very different. And so while the food volume's the same, the calorie totals can be significantly switched. And so this can work both ways. Trying to gain weight, obviously swing towards more that, more calorically dense stuff. And trying to lose weight though, we can sort of swing our pendulum the other way. That way we're not feeling as hungry, and it doesn't feel like we're dieting even though we're within a diet sort of thing. And another way we can do it is, well, just reducing the size of our meals overall. So you can sort of trick yourself into, instead of grabbing like a large normal size dinner plate, you can get like one of those small ones that the dinner roll comes on. You can use a smaller spoon as well. Next you know, you're having 100 bites of this tiny spoon, and you're like, man, I've had so much, when in reality you just had like a normal size bowl sort of thing, right? And so these are all the different ways that we can create a calorie deficit. But with all of that said, there is a lot more that goes into nutrition than just knowing how to eat less. And so I want to touch on those top three for the moment, being sleep, stress, as well as our current lifestyle habits and behaviors. So has anyone heard this or been told some variation of this statement before? Of course Jazz has. No, cool. So sleep is pretty cool. It's the ultimate recovery tool and very much essential for proper physical, mental, and emotional bodily function. And so we want to make sure that we are getting an appropriate amount of sleep. What happens when we don't? Well, not getting enough sleep, which is considered less than 7 hours a night. Anyone here get less than 7 hours of sleep per night? Anyone here get less than 6 hours of sleep per night?
At the moment,
yeah? Oh, no, good. But, so, not getting enough sleep consistently does a few things. First, it impacts our appetite. Now, the bro science theory here is that because you didn't get the energy you needed from your sleep, the body's sort of going, hey brother, like have a bit more food so that we have a sustained level of energy throughout the day. On top of that, it also impacts our energy expenditure. So you've got a newborn, you understand, you get up and you are just like, oh, sort of thing, right? Trying to get through the day. And so that combination of, being hungrier and not moving as much can really impact our ability to stick to a fat loss diet, right? Like if you get a poor night's sleep and you feel hungrier and not want to move as much, there's a lot more willpower that needs to go in there, right? And so we want to do our best to stack the deck in our favor. But a third point there that I had is that not getting enough sleep actually blunts fat loss and muscle gain, right? And I actually have some anecdotal data on this. So I'm currently in a diet of about 6 weeks deep, but at the beginning of this diet, there was a period where I didn't get a lot of sleep for a weekend. And you can see it there. Between Sunday and Tuesday, I gained 700 grams, even though I was technically in a deficit, right? And it wasn't until I started getting relatively consistent night's sleep that my body weight plummeted back down. Pretty cool, right? And it shows us that, sleep's kind of important. Now, what the hell do we take from this, right? Well, the thing that I want to say is just aiming for 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night is pretty good. Now, of course, the caveat there is if you've got a newborn, if you're not getting that much sleep right now, that's okay. Just do the best you can given your circumstance. And if you feel like you can add an extra 20 or 30 minutes of sleep at some point throughout the week, go for gold, all right? Now, I can see you smiling already, that's good. Now, oh, yeah, exactly right. Yeah, that's it, you've got a tag team the whole way. She takes, yeah? What a guy. Now, with that said, some tips to improve our sleep quality and quantity. I find that no screens, about half an hour to an hour before you go to bed is pretty good. For me, that hour mark is where I normally sit, but do experiment if you can go 45 minutes before you go to sleep, half an hour before you go to bed, even 15 minutes, see where that sort of line is for you, just so we can really stack the deck in our favor. We want the room dark, so no real natural light or artificial light within the room. We want it fairly cold. Now, it is winter. I'm wearing a flannelette and another jumper, so getting it cold is not too hard right now. But certainly in summer, it can be a challenge. And so for those that like numbers or have their aircon on, somewhere between 16 to 20 degrees, we know is the right answer. But again, find what works best for you. A caveat I have with silence is sometimes some people do need some sort of white noise in the background. And so I find a fan works really well here for 2 reasons. Number one, just the blades give us that sort of ambient noise. But on top of that, that fan will circulate the air in the room, which will keep it cold and just really help with our sleep. So that goes over our sleep. I want to talk about stress for a second. So stress is kind of stressful and impacts the body in a multitude of ways. Anyone consider themselves a stress eater here? What about those anyone break down and feel exhausted when they're stressed? Anyone here not sleep when they're stressed? That one? Oh, for sure. Mine just completely racing? Yeah. Anyone ever had an emotional outburst from being too stressed? Try not to? That's pretty good. Anyone here feel like they're good at dealing with stress? No? Okay, just hide it, just do your best. Just push it down. Yeah, no, I agree. So these are all examples of sort of signs that people aren't doing the best when it comes to the amount of stress they're under. And there is a lot of different kinds of stresses within our lives, right? From emotional, physical, social, financial, spiritual, right? And the list could go on, right? And so I believe there is this supply and demand scale we have to balance. There's the demand of life and the stresses that are put onto us, and the supply that we give to our bodies through food, sleep, recovery, all these things, right? And so I don't believe we can ever run away from stress, but I surely do believe we can manage it. And so some of the things that can help us sort of manage our stress, first off, if you can, just get enough sleep. Okay, I can't stress that enough. The second thing is some sort of mindfulness or breathing technique. That's the saying you got to sit here and be all kumbaya. But that could be journaling. That might be just sitting with yourself in silence. Okay, listening to those intrusive thoughts. Anything like that that just helps ground you is a really great way just to relieve a bit of stress that you're under. On top of that, movement, exercise. You guys are part of a gym. You're already one step ahead, which is really cool. Or you could do something fun. That for you might be going for a walk, going to the beach, going to a pet store and playing with all the puppy dogs there, okay? Doing something that you find enjoyable is, again, a really great way to reduce the stress you're under. That is, I second that and go for gold. Now, oh, bless. And so, with all that said, like I said, doing something fun, picking on jazz, totally agree. But knowing our limits is the best thing here, right? So if you find one of those signs that I mentioned before is starting to unveil its head, that's probably a good indication that, hey, we just take a step back, ground ourselves before we keep moving forward. And the reason why this is kind of important is, well, if food is a way or an outburst is a way that someone copes with stress, how likely do you think they'll have success with a diet when they're in a position where they're restricting the amount of food they get to eat, right? It's a pretty big deal, okay? So we want to have all these different ways that we can manage our stress. So that covers sleep. We've talked on stress. Has anyone heard or read this quote before? Very good, we've got two. That's easy done. Well, this was said by a gentleman named James Clear. He wrote a book called Atomic Habits. And the thing he's getting at is that our current habits and behaviors are a reflection of how well we look, feel, and perform. Or said differently, all the things that you're doing right now, that is all summed up in how you look and feel at this current point in time, right? And so I'm sure everyone here in this room, definitely including myself, can do something better than what they're currently doing. But I don't feel we need to get everything right. We can just keep improving until we've either achieved our goal or some level that we can sustain long term, right? And so an example of this could be maybe we have one less snack during the week. Potentially you focus on reducing stress or finding a way to deal with it. Maybe you go for an extra walk, or you get an extra 20 minutes sleep each night. Because this could result in, well, just better long-term fat loss results if that's your goal. You could also feel better and not as overwhelmed. Potentially you have a more sustainable activity routine. And last but not least, just improvements to your overall well-being is really cool. And so something I have to say is just start small, nail it, and build upon each change you make until, again, you've at a point where you can sustain that long term, or you've achieved your goal, which in that case, congrats, that's really cool. So, we've gone over why someone might want to lose weight. We've talked about the role of nutrition when it comes to fat loss. We've looked at some things outside of nutrition when it comes to sleep, stress, and our current behaviors. Let's talk about what I like to call the micros or the macros, or nutrition, squat, bench, and deadlift, right? So, big three when we train. The big three in nutrition is protein, fats, and carbs. And I've got plants in there as well, as this is the process we'll go through when it comes to building out our plate of food. So to rip in on Instagram's favorite macronutrient, protein. So protein's our most satiating macronutrient, means it makes us feel fuller for longer, but it's also the main structural component of the body. So all the things from your muscle to your toenails to your hair, your blood vessels, all the things that make up you have some sort of protein within their structure, okay? And so it also helps us build muscle, as I said, but also hold on to it when we diet. So we want to make sure that we prioritize having protein with every meal, if not most of our meals throughout the day. Now, what does a serving of protein look like for us? Well, if you took your palm and you looked at the size of your palm and the thickness of it, right? That's roughly 1 serve of protein, okay? So we'll be aiming for 1 to 2 serves of that throughout the day, and this could be a piece of chicken, tuna, tofu, seitan, any of those whole nutrient-dense sources are bang on, okay? So that's our serving of protein, about the size and thickness of our palm. What if your palms are different sizes? Go for the bigger palm. Now that we've talked on getting our serve of protein, yeah, I once had someone, they told me that using this was great. Yeah. I once had someone tell me, you know what, using this guide is great, they just wish they had bigger hands so they could eat more. And I was like, you know what, I wholeheartedly agree. But we've got our palm of protein. Now we want to have some sort of plant on our plate. So this is fruits and veggies sort of things, right? And these sort of are a triple threat. So first off, fruits and veggies are fairly low calorie compared to their more nutrient and calorie dense counterparts. They're also high in fiber, which makes us feel fuller for longer, and they're micronutrient rich. So we get to have more of them. The fiber helps us stay fuller for longer, and micronutrients our body needs in order to thrive and function properly, right? And so they're a great way to bulk up our meals, and the second thing we'll add to our plate just to add a bit of substance to it. When it comes to what a serve looks like, well, something about the size of our fist. So if you got Luke Skywalker and had your hand cut off, all right, something about that size is what we're looking for there, okay? So we've got our palm of protein, our fist of plants. Once we've got those two, let's talk fats. So fats are some pretty good stuff, and they sort of have two roles in the body. The first one is they're a building block for our hormones. So think of testosterone, estrogen, cholesterol. All of these things have some sort of fat within their structure, right? But on top of that, fats are also the secondary fuel source of the body. And this is where all the keto craze sort of came to fruition, where everyone's like, yeah, if I eat lots of fat in my diet, my body gets super good at burning fat for fuel, and I'm gonna burn body fat, and it's gonna be so good. And everyone forgot that the only reason you burn body fat is because you didn't eat enough in the first place. So yeah, that is always gonna be the main driver when it comes to weight loss, hands down. If you wanna eat keto, go for gold, just make sure you're in a deficit, all right? But with that said, it's also a fuel source for the body, right? And so we add this third because, again, it is needed for some structures, right? And so because fats also contain more calories than all the others, in fact, over double, our serving size is a little bit smaller. So if you took your thumb, you cut it off, right? That's what we're looking for here, okay? Something about the size of our thumb is 1 serve of fats for you, okay? And so we want to aim for, again, sort of like that 1 to 2 serves of fats, depending on what meal we're having, right? And so we've got our protein, we've got our plants, we've got our fats. Let's talk about everyone's big bad enemy. You can't have it after 6 p.m. The God's worst thing, okay? That's carbs. So carbs are in fact not the enemy. And actually, they're not essential for survival, but kind of like how you can run without shoes, they certainly help, okay? And
So going back to the fats,
yep.
having half an avocado is too much a day.
Well, I wouldn't say so. How much would that, how big is the avocado?
Like the normal size.
Normal size?
I eat half every day.
I'll do half an hour every day.
Yeah, half an hour is
Half in the morning, if I don't quite touch my macro counts at night, I'll finish the rest of it.
yeah, half.
Avocado or some sort of like that.
Yeah, half an hour is pretty good. Because like I said, if you took, what I find is if you took your thumb, you doubled it, that's about half an hour. So that's pretty good. That'd be about 1 serve.
Or what do you call that, seasoning?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. An avocado is bang on. Yeah, so when it comes to our fat sources, like, as you said, nut butter, nuts, oils, seeds, avocado, dark chocolate, cheese.
21 almonds.
You're right, 21 almonds. No more, no less.
What are the different sizes?
Nope.
No, can't do it. 21. Exactly right. Exactly right. So once we've got our 21 almonds and our half of avocado, we're going to add some carbs, okay? And so carbs are the primary fuel source for the body and hands down the best performance enhancer, okay? So you guys in here doing CrossFit WODs, okay? Very high intensity training. You certainly want to be getting some carbs into you before you start, okay? That's for sure. But again, because they aren't essential for survival and we can get away without having them, they are the last thing we add to our plate. And normally I say add these to satiety, but considering we are doing fat loss, we'd sort of add these just to round out the meal. So what we'd look for in a serve, if you took your hand, you sort of made a cup, that's what 1 serve would look like for you. And so as the visual shows as well, if you had a tennis ball in your hand, that's about the mound we're going for too, okay?
What if you're 15 and you're trying to opposite? How much carb are you having before a game or something?
Mate, have a crack. Go for gold, have a crack. Yeah, exactly right. So I'd play with it, I'd be like, you know what? See how much you have and then start getting the stomach ache and then have a little bit less than that.
And have a glass of water.
Exactly right. So yeah, that's what we're going for when we build out our plate, okay? We're going for our palm of protein, our fist of plants, our thumbs of fat, and our cupped handfuls of carbs. And my little final point there, if this is a meal you're having pre-training, we want to make sure that you don't get a bit of a stomach ache like I mentioned before at the soccer game. So instead of having your thumb of fat, have another handful of carbs, okay? Make up those calories in a way that you can actually use throughout whatever you're trying to perform in, right? Be it in a box, on the field, okay? At work, go for gold there, okay? And with all of that said and done though, we can't measure everything with our hands, okay? Like, you wouldn't go to a buffet, right, and be like, yeah, just start hounding stuff with your hands. Like, oh, that's disgusting, okay? Don't go doing that. But what we can do, right, yeah, just like dip your fingers, yeah, dip your thumb in the butter, and then use that to ripe onto the bread. Like, that's what you're going for.
If you open a restaurant, one menu's going to be life size. It's 1-to-1 scale.
1-to-1 scale.
Portions are going to be.
Mate, Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, don't worry about it. Like I said, like just have a mound of butter there, and everyone just gets their thumb and uses that to wipe into the bread. That's what we're going for here, right? But hand in hand is a really easy way to visually see if what we're eating is right for us. Okay, and so while I said 1 to 2 serves of each component is ideal, okay, there is lots of room for variation here. And so the biggest thing we need to take into consideration is that we're eating in appropriate alignment with our goals. So if we are going out into a field, don't go only having 1 cup of carbs. And if we're trying to lose weight, don't go adding heaps of carbs to your food, right? Find that balance that's appropriate to your goals, but also eating in a way that you enjoy. So if you like having more fats, go for gold. If you like having more carbs, go for gold. The big thing here is that you're doing it in a way that you know is sustainable for you, okay? And so to touch on a few extra things, because sometimes they can get a little bit lost and people do get questions. When it comes to stuff like condiments, some do contain calories, so just be mindful about how much you use. To make it super easy, anything that's oil-based, so think about aiolis, dressings, like hummus, all right, ranch, all that stuff, consider that a fat source. And when it comes to other stuff like our barbecue sauce, tomato sauce, some mustards even, I would call them half a carb sauce, depending on how much you use, if you're really having a crack, all right? But just be mindful that they do contain calories as well. When it comes to alcohol does a few funky things to our body. Number one, it actually increases cravings for sweet and salty foods. So I'm sure everyone's been to the pub and they got like nuts or pretzels or something there and it's like, oh, he's mad sort of thing, right? So alcohol increases our cravings for those kinds of sensory foods. On top of that, it's known to impact sleep in a negative way and actually stops fat loss altogether because our body prioritizes getting rid of the alcohol within the body first before it burns fat. So it's sort of like this 1, 2, 3 punch, right? And to sort of cherry on top here, alcohol does contain calories. So one standard drink, which is 10 grams of alcohol, contains about 70 calories. That doesn't include if it's a beer, what you mix it with. Yes? There'd probably still be about 70 calories in there, which is so annoying, right? Because you might have, I'm just gonna have a couple of shots. Next thing you know, you've accrued this debt and pulled yourself out of this deficit that you've tried so hard to be in. And it's so annoying, right? It's like, why aren't I seeing results? And so I'm not gonna tell anyone here that they shouldn't drink, like have a crack, but just keep it sensible and know that there is a trade-off here, okay? And so we wanna do our best to do it in a way that's in line with our goals, but again, that doesn't mean you can't have a drink, right? Now, it wouldn't be fair on alcohol if I didn't also talk about water. So every cell in our body needs water to function, and 1% water loss can actually impair physical and mental function, right? So to give some numbers here, as it says there, the average person turns over about 100 ml of water every hour. And so, well, why would I care? Well, let's take myself for an example. I'm about 85 kilos. Let's say I don't have anything to drink 2 hours before I go to sleep, and I sleep for 8 hours. I am well and truly at that 1% mark, okay? And so if I go to train in the morning, my performance might not be as good as I want it to be. So what does that mean for us, okay? Like, do we have to play catch up this entire time throughout the day? Well, something that I found works really well with clients especially is having a big glass of water upon waking, okay? So as soon as you wake up, you go to the bathroom, you do your thing, you come out, go to the kitchen, have a good old glass of water. And after that, just sort of drink to thirst throughout the day. That, for the most part, should cover your bases, okay? Again, somewhere around that 2 to 3 liters of water throughout the day is a great place to start. And when it comes to training, we want to be aiming for anywhere between half a liter to a liter of water every hour that we train. So, Jazz, can you grab my shaker that's over there, please? Let's say I started training, an hour ago, right? And I have my shaker here. Thank you, assistant. This shaker is about 750 ml, right? By the time I finish training, I want it to be either close to empty or empty, right? And so that's just a rough gauge. If you've got a shaker, try to have it all done within the hour that you train. And so, we've talked about a lot here, but I just want to summarize with a few key points. So, adjusting how much we eat is a primary lever to attenuate fat loss, right? So if we eat less than what we burn throughout the day, we're going to hopefully lose some weight. But sleep and stress also play a super critical role in how successful our diet is. And so we want to take those two things, as well as what our current behaviors are, into consideration when we choose to pursue fat loss. Finally, hand pushing is a great tool. While not accurate, it's specific to you and a good way for us to monitor how much we're taking in through phases. So you might do it for a couple of weeks, then back off, then come back into it again, just to make sure you're eating in line with your goals. And finally, prioritizing protein, plants, and fiber can help with reducing hunger and the effects of the diet overall. But a little sort of fifth and bonus round, successful fat loss truly rests on two things, and I touched on this throughout the presentation. That's being in a deficit and sticking to it. So the best things I believe you can do for your fat loss goals is just maintaining an appropriate deficit, following an eating pattern that you enjoy, and doing it long enough that you actually achieve success. All right, I've seen too many people, I was one of them, as you saw, where you're just like, yeah, I'm just gonna go for gold. And next thing you know, you meet up with them 3 months later, they're heavier than they were 3 months before. It's like, what happened? It says, oh man, dieting's just not for me. It says, no, you just chose to work against your body, okay? So I do believe that people intend to find ways that are sustainable long term. So take your time, find what works for you, and have some fun with this. And so I do hope that you got a lot out of today's seminar, and I'm open to any questions. Fantastic. Sold. Well, thank you very much for coming out, guys. No, you're all good. I appreciate it. Kept me on my toes, that's what it did. Kept me on my toes. Awesome, not a problem. All right, guys, thank you. Appreciate it.